Reverse by Black K. Cat. Chapter 18. Effugent. Fuck! Shisui growls, watching the white speck that is Kurama's not a summons, apparently able to fly, which Kakashi finds patently unfair, vanish against the horizon. How the heck can it do that? Not easily, I would suspect, Kakashi says, and it takes more effort than it should to keep his voice even. If this is the first time she's done it, I assume it's a last resort. Which unfortunately doesn't change the fact that Kurama, Naruto, and the Kazekage's son are now well out of reach. Feeling distinctly irritated, he turns his attention to the shinobi Kurama was fighting, still hunched over on the other side of the river. You, he starts, before he can get so much as another word out, the man snarls. Konoha dogs! You're responsible for my prey escaping! I think I take offense, Baki says, unerring. Who are you? Why are you after him? But the man just growls and leaps forward and dives into the river, letting the deceptively swift current sweep him away. Kakashi and Tenzo both lunge to grab him, but a burst of worm-like gray thread stabs straight at them, forcing them to jump away before they get close. A moment later, the man is gone, all but out of sight, and Kakashi rolls back to his feet with anger curling fire hot in his gut. I think, he says with careful mildness, testing the words as he speaks them, that I'm starting to lose my patience. Tenzo casts him a weary sideways look and deliberately edges out of the line of fire. We've come this far, Itachi says quietly, practically the only thing he's said since their teams met up along the border. Kakashi used to the Uchiha's reticence, but this is strange even for him, and Shisui obviously thinks so as well, if his frequent worried glances are anything to go by. It's not like we're going to give up, Shisui reminds his cousin, leaping lightly across the river. Scorched grass crunches under his feet, and he crouches down to inspect a shard of what looks like porcelain, where it's half buried in the ground. Almost like a Nanbu mask, he comments, holding it up for Kakashi's inspection as the older man joins him. Can Shiba tell if it's Kurama's or the other man's? Kakashi glances over at his Ninken just as Baki grabs the big dog, hauling him off the ground and jumping to their side of the stream. When he catches sight of Kakashi's raised brow, Baki just snorts and says, I hate this motherfucker dog. Well, anything? Shiba? Kakashi asks mildly, crouching down next to the white dog. It's the swimmers, boss! Shiba says after a quick sniff, wrinkling his nose and giving a pointed sneeze. He smells like something dead! Separate and track them both, Tenzo suggests, scanning the ground for any more pieces. He comes up with a handful, enough to show that it clearly was some sort of mask before it was destroyed. Kakashi trades glances with Baki, then shakes his head. No, separated didn't work out so well for us last time. We'll keep going. Kurama will have to land somewhere, especially if it's a particularly draining technique, and their heading was clear. They're going towards Taki. Home of another Jinchuriki, Itachi points out. Is there a way to warn them? Shisui snorts, rising to his feet and dusting off his fingers. If we're lucky, the Hokage's already sent messages to all the villages. We should concentrate on actually catching Kurama. We've already closed the gap. Even with this, he won't be too far ahead of us. Kakashi hopes the younger man is right. They can't afford to lose the trail now. Are you good to keep going, Shiba? He asks. I can dismiss you and call one of the others. Shiba looks offended, his dark mohawk of hair bristling faintly. I'm your best tracker, boss, he protests. You're gonna kick me off the case now? Nah, Kakashi raises a hand in surrender. Just a suggestion. Let's go then, we're losing ground. Which we wouldn't be, Tenzo said pointedly, if someone had kept their mouth shut and not screamed like a little girl. Shisui scoffs loudly. Oh, because you tripping me and almost making me land on my face is my fault! I did not trip you, Tenzo counters, smiling. Kind of. Kakashi still isn't entirely certain how he gets his face to do that, but whatever it is, it's definitely creepy. If I had it, Shisui, you would know. You're a lying liar who lies and you totally did! There were roots! I saw them! Yes, Shaceway, plants have roots. Good observation, very insightful. No wonder you're a giant. Oh, screw you, plant boy, these roots moved! You're mistaken. Tenzo's smile gets creepier, something Kakashi hadn't really thought was possible. I wouldn't sabotage a mission just to torture you. We're comrades. And with friends like you, I'm safer among my enemies! A hair paranoia is a symptom of psychosis. Maybe you should go back to the village and get your head seen to. Being that empty all the time can't be good for it. Kakashi puts his head in his hands and sighs, trying in vain to shut out their voices. He wishes desperately for selective deafness. Not the first time he's done so when stuck on a team with those two, and he certainly won't be the last either. Well, Maggie says dryly, how long have they been married? That is a horrifying thought. Kakashi grimaces and asks, possibly rather plaintively, must you plant those images in my head? The Sunanin snorts but obligingly changes the subject. We should get going. My team is several hours behind us already, and we don't have time to wait for them. We need to catch up as soon as possible. Kakashi definitely isn't about to slow down enough for them to join up. His team can move at the necessary speeds, but dragging anyone else along would just hinder them. Baki, who insisted on joining them at the border, at least can keep up with their pace. Anyone weaker would be entirely out of luck. Shiba, he orders mildly, and the Nindog immediately puts his nose to the ground and heads after Kurama's group at a loping run. Kakashi follows with Baki on his left. Tenzo and Shisui trail after them even as they argue, and an unnervingly silent Itachi brings up the rear. There are trees passing beneath them by the time Fuji starts to falter, and Kurama doesn't know or care if they're fire country or not. Naruto is clinging to his back, Gaara is clinging to his front, and both boys are pale and worried. The Freak Squad is behind them, but likely not for long, and Kurama can't help the twist of panic low in his gut. He's not prepared for this. Doesn't have a solid plan beyond run and don't get caught. Fighting would be easy, but there's a new face in the party to go along with the 2.5 Sharingan users and the baby Mokuton user. Kurama's odds of escaping without seriously hurting someone, and he doesn't want to. Has never wanted to, even at his angriest, are diminishing by the hour. Desperate for distraction from his increasingly dark thoughts, Kurama catches the first flicker of Fuji's foxfire just as they pass over the wide, lazy curve of a river. She wobbles and they drop several feet at once, making Gaara start and Naruto yelp. Kurama grabs them both, drags them more tightly against him, and says, Fuji? Another wobble, this time almost enough to unseat them, and the vixen only just manages to recover before they plummet into the water. Sorry, Kurama-sama, she manages on a breath. I think this is all I can do. The foxfire around her paws flickers, then vanishes like a candle flame snuffed out. There's a gut-lurching moment of freefall, a sharp pop, and Kurama suddenly has his arms full of baby Jinchuriki, a tiny teenage fox summons. He has just enough time to think, crap! Very vehemently before they're plummeting, the surface of the river rising to meet them. Kurama hits it feet first, and the sudden shock of cold is enough to drive the air from his lungs like a fist to the stomach. Gaara flails desperately, and Naruto almost lets go, but Kurama hooks one arm around both of them, ducks flailing limbs, and kicks for the surface. Fuji is doing the same, but her motions are weak, exhausted, and Kurama grabs her as he passes. One more strong push and his head breaks the surface, and he sucks in a breath as he strikes out for the bank. Thankfully, the water is slow-moving, and the bank isn't too steeply inclined. Kurama staggers through the shallows, grunting at the even colder bite of icy air, and up onto the grass. He flaps down there, trying not to shiver too noticeably, and asks, Everyone okay? Naruto's teeth are chattering, and Gaara's lips are blue. Fuji is unconscious, looking a third of her usual size with her fur completely soaked, and Kurama can't quite feel his fingers. The boys exchange glances, and then Naruto offers a brave smile. We're okay, Kurama-ni. It's very obviously a lie. Kurama stares at them for a long moment, then curses and drags a hand through his sopping hair, which is leaking icy trails of water down his neck and shoulders. Right, he says grimly. Gaara sneezes, squeaky like a mouse with a cold, and then looks deeply offended to have made such a sound. Naruto laughs delightedly, but he's shaking so hard that it comes out warped. Sage Damn it, Kurama thinks wearily. They don't have time for this. There's no knowing how far east they manage to get or how fast the Freak Squad will manage to catch up. But there's no way they can keep going like this, wet and freezing and on the verge of hypothermia. It's winter, and night will be falling soon. The boys are already in a bad way. If Kurama doesn't do something, they'll freeze to death. A little helplessly, Kurama casts a glance around them. There are trees a short distance away, not quite a forest, but decent for cover. They butt right up against the rise of a hill, its sides steep and wooded, and that at least is a good sign. Maybe Kurama can pull together something like a shelter for the night, though it won't help with their trackers. Still, it's at least the start of a plan, and if Kurama has to, he'll fight Kakashi and his Perugia. He's not going back to Konoha, not when there's an end to all of this in sight. Come on, he says, pushing to his feet. Let's go start a fire and get warm. He scoops Fuji's limp form up in his arms, checking her breathing, and is relieved when he finds it deep and steady. She's exhausted, on the verge of chakra exhaustion, but she'll be fine with a little rest. A small hand fists in the sopping hem of his Hiyori, and Naruto presses close. Is Fujini okay? He asks solemnly, and on Kurama's other side, Gaara nods, serious eyes fixed on the little fox. Kurama smiles at them, ruffling blonde hair, then red. Yeah, brats. She's going to be just fine. All she needs is some sleep. Let's go get warm, yeah? Maybe we can share that person's fire, Naruto suggests cheerfully, pointing in the opposite direction of the hill, and Kurama stiffens, spinning around. There is indeed a fire in the distance, through another stand of trees. It's a large one without a lot of smoke, and Kurama's willing to bet that someone experienced built it. Maybe a shinobi. Probably an enemy, given the way his luck is going today. Still, it's a fire. It's close enough that even if Kurama lights one of his own, whoever built it will see, so they might as well dive in head first. Right, he says on a sigh. Let's check. You're good to walk, kids. Gaara nods solemnly, then twists his fingers into Kurama's sleeve and says quietly, I don't think I like swimming, Kurama-ni. Do we have to do it again? Right. This is the moment when Kurama remembers that Gaara is from a desert and has likely never been dunked in water before outside of a bath, let alone an icy river somewhere near the Taki border in the middle of winter. This day is just off to a truly fantastic start. No, he says as comfortingly as he's able. No, Gaara, we don't have to go swimming anymore. Not until summer, and you might not mind it then. Naruto stays right next to his leg as he heads for the flicker of light in the distance. I went swimming once, he says cheerfully, but it was on Sasuke's birthday when he threw me into the river, so it was pretty warm. The water felt good and it didn't hurt. When will we get to swim like that? I think you'll like it, Gaara. It was lots of fun. Gaara eyes him skeptically, but says nothing. With a soft snort, Kurama nudges the boy to the side around a large rock that's just the right height to trip him. Later, Kit. He reminds Naruto, then judges their distance from the fire ahead and adds, Wait here. I'll check it out. Stay quiet, okay? Sure, Kurama-ni! Naruto happily accepts Fuji, cradling her in his arms, and Gaara shifts closer to him, transferring his grip from Kurama's sleeve to Naruto's. Kurama gives them each another hair ruffle, murmurs, I'll be right back, and... A scream. A child's scream, high and terrified. Kurama jerks around, eyes fixed on the source, the fire, and hesitates. Instinct says to go, to help. But instinct also says to stay with Naruto, with Gaara, because they're vulnerable. Targets! Go, Kurama-ni! Naruto urges, and that's enough. Kurama bolts, chakra already rising in the flickering surge of bloody red, and he dodges around a stand of trees, leaps an outcropping of mossy stones, and lands squarely in the center of a small clearing, the fire crackling on his left. In an instant, he takes in the situation. Two shinobi dressed in dark colors, a green-haired girl held between them, overturned bags, blood on the woman's face, the man favoring his leg, a wide bruise decorating the girl's cheek. And around them, sharp and strong, is the scent of fear. Around them is a surge of familiar chakra, bright and light like beating wings, with a shimmer that no other bijuu's power has. Chome! Kurama recognizes in a rush and doesn't hesitate. With a roar, he throws himself forward right at the pair of jonin, and sharp claws tear into the man's throat. He goes down with a gurgling cry, even as Kurama spins. The woman has more time to react, and she hurls the girl to the side, then brings up a kuna and stabs forward. Kurama twists around the blow, dodges a hard kick, and flips over her head. She spins, trying to follow, and while the blow that should have taken out her spine misses, Kurama's claws slice through the arm of her uniform and then through skin, and blood splatters across the ground. It doesn't slow the woman. She hops back, bringing her hands together, and the earth shakes. Kurama leaps headlong over the pit that suddenly opens right in front of him, kicks off a spear of stone that tries to skewer him, and tackles the woman bodily. She goes down with a cry, but manages to get a foot in his gut and launch him off of her, and Kurama has to twist in the air. He comes down on one hand, flips back to his feet, and catches the kunai that comes flying at him. A bare instant later, the woman follows, but Kurama ducks her second kunai, dodges a knife hand blow to the back of the neck, and twists, driving his stolen kunai forward. Fouled by his feet, trapped by her own attempt to hit him, the woman has nowhere to dodge, and the blade takes her in the heart. There's a long moment of silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire, and then Kurama takes a breath and straightens, stepping away. The woman's corpse drops almost on top of her partner's, and Kurama gives them a brief glance before he turns to the little girl. She's probably no more than 8, small and skinny in a way that's all too familiar, and the livid bruise on her cheek makes Kurama wish he had taken longer killing her attackers. "Hey," he says gently, watching her sit up and warily inch away from him. He crouches down but doesn't move closer and asks, "You okay, kid?" She takes a breath, eyes flickering to the two bodies, and then squares her shoulders and looks up stubbornly. "I'm okay. They didn't hit me that hard." Kurama might believe her, but now that he has time to look, he can see the second bruise spreading across her stomach, stark against the bare skin, and the ring of bruises around each of her wrists where hands gripped too tight. "They shouldn't have hit you at all," he says sharply, and it comes out low enough to be counted as a growl. The girl jerks orange gold eyes, snapping up to his face, and makes a wordless sound. "But," she protests, and then stops short, looking down again. "You don't know me," she points out, and it's quiet, but there's an edge of fire to the words. "I could be dangerous, and you just killed them for no reason." Sage, save him from damaged children and the messed up assholes who make them that way. Kurama draws in a slow breath, fighting to keep his temper under control, and says quietly, "Even if I didn't know you, it's still not right for them to hit a kid, especially when there's 2 of them and 1 of you, and you weigh maybe 70 pounds soaking wet. But you're wrong about one thing, kid. I do know you. I know what you are and what's inside you. It doesn't make you a monster. It's not a reason for people to hurt you." She stares at him for a long moment, wide-eyed and silent, and then something rustles. She jerks around on her feet in an instant and already reaching for one of the dropped kunai, but Kurama holds a hand to stop her. "Easy," he murmurs. "They're with me, and you've got a lot in common." Raising his voice, he adds, "Naruto, Gaara, it's fine, you can come out now." Almost before he's finished speaking, a blonde head bumps out of the bushes, and a moment later, Naruto wiggles his way through, still carrying Fuji, with Gaara hanging on to him. "Aww," he says, taking in the clearing. "I thought we could rescue you again, Kurama-ni." Kurama rolls his eyes. Yeah, brat. No need to play hero on my account. We're all good here. Naruto, Gaara, I want you to meet someone." "Hi!" Naruto says immediately, beaming widely at the girl, who looks entirely poleaxed to see such an expression directed at her. "You're really cute! I'm Naruto!" "Gaara," the redhead adds almost inaudibly. He's eyeing the new Jinchuriki warily, and his grip on Naruto's shirt is so tight that his knuckles have gone white. He studies her for a long moment, then glances up at Kurama and asks quietly, "Is she like us?" Naruto's head snaps around, and he suddenly looks like he's all but vibrating with enthusiasm. With a soft chuckle, Kurama drops that hand on Gaara's head. "Yeah, Squirt, she's one too. She's got Chome, the Nanabi." Shifting his attention to the girl, who has gone pale, he tries for a reassuring smile. "I told you that you guys have a lot in common." The girl takes a shaky breath. You're like me? She demands. Yeah! Naruto grins, flashing a victory sign. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and I'm gonna be the next Hokage! Believe it! She giggles, then briefly looks surprised, as if she hadn't meant to. I'm Fu, she says. Fu of Takigakure. Turning to Kurama, she bows deeply, then looks up, and this time she's wearing a smile. Thank you for saving me. They were going to take me back to Taki and lock me up because I keep running away. Kurama lightly touches the bruise on her face, unable to fight a frown. Well, if that's the kind of treatment you get there, I sure as heck don't blame you. Got somewhere to go, kid? I don't need it, Fu says stubbornly. Everything will work out. I just have to keep moving and avoid people. That sounds unnervingly familiar. Kurama studies her for a moment, feeling the well-remembered buzz of Chomei's chakra against his skin. The beetle is wary, slightly agitated, but keeping a distance for now, not trying to overwhelm Fu, and that earns the Nanabi some brownie points. Still, even older than Naruto and Gaara, even with Chomei as a fairly respectful passenger rather than an ass like Shikagu, even with Fu being nominally none of his concern and nothing to do with his current mission, even with all of that, Kurama can't leave a little girl alone in the woods. Not when people are after her, no matter how convinced she is of her own strength. He's turning into a goddamn sucker, Kurama thinks sourly. His Naruto would be laughing his ass off right now. It just so happens, he says, and can't quite manage to make it offhand, that we've got pretty much the same plan. But I've found it's easier to get away when you're running to something. Want to tag along? I'm dragging these two to see another Jinchuriki up near Kumo. Should throw Taki off your trail if nothing else. For a long moment, Fu eyes him, then turns to regard Naruto and Gaara. They look like a sorry group, Kurama knows, bedraggled and wet and dirty, suffering from the bone-deep weariness of too many days with too few breaks. Kurama can see the refusal in her face, the stubborn insistence to go it alone. But then she hesitates. She glances back at Kurama, then at the bodies, and then at Gaara and Naruto. Why? She demands, and that spark of fire Kurama heard once before is in her eyes. I don't care if you know what I am. You don't know me. But I'd like to, Kurama tells her softly, and her breath catches. He reaches out automatically, settling a hand on her pale green hair. Everyone needs a friend, kid. No one can ever make it entirely on their own. The kindest man I've ever met taught me that, and I'm not about to forget it. Everyone needs someone to lean on, even if you only ever use the help once. That's still one time when you need someone to stand with you, and that's what friends are for. I can't promise anything, but we could be your friends, if you want it. Naruto. All he can think of in that moment is Naruto. His Naruto. The one who was everything to him. That man. That boy. That hero. He'd say something like this. And even if Kurama can only ever be a poor imitation, even if he can never live up to the man that Naruto became, that he always was, maybe it's still enough to change a little girl's life for the better. Fu chews on her lower lip, orange gold eyes steady as she sizes him up. You mean it, she says, almost disbelieving. You want to be my friend? Us too, Naruto insists, bouncing on his toes and grinning. Kurama likes saving people and making friends, and so do we. I don't give a damn about most people, Kurama corrects with a roll of his eyes. But you three are Jinchuriki. There aren't a lot of people who can save you when you get in real trouble. I figure I might as well keep you out of it as best I can and save myself some work. That's why you saved me? Fu asks curiously. Because I'm a Jinchuriki? Kurama shrugs. More or less. I would have taken care of those goons even if you weren't, but I'm happier that you are. All the best people I've met have been Jinchuriki, and you're not doing much to break that streak, kid. The silence stretches for another long second, and then Fu tips up her chin and squares her shoulders. She meets Kurama's eyes evenly and says, Then I'm glad I'm a Jinchuriki, if that's the reason you wanted to save me. And if you're going somewhere, I'll come too. Joy. Another brat to watch. Kurama heaves a disgruntled sigh, but Maybe he's smiling. Just a little, and only possibly. Over Naruto's happy chair, he says, "Great. Welcome to the team. Hope you don't mind hoofing it for a bit. We should head out in case those two weren't alone." Fu makes a face. "I hate lighting fires in the caves," she says, clearly dissatisfied with the thought. "It's always so smoky, and the bats get all upset." Kurama pauses. Blinks. Caves. Fu blinks right back at him. "The caves," she repeats. "They're for when Taki gets invaded, so we can get shinobi to the border faster. Most people just go above ground, but they're the reasons I always get away. My grandpa's the head man and showed them to me. Weren't you gonna use them? It's easier." "The gods look after drunks, idiots, and wayward time-traveling Biju," Kurama thinks, the rush of relief almost buckling his knees. "Kid," he says fervently, "you are absolutely amazing. Caves just became my new favorite place. Naruto, Gaara, up." Naruto grabs his hand, Gaara still attached to his sleeve. "I like caves too," he agrees easily. "Is there gonna be another dirt storm? That last one was fun!" "Sandstorm," Gaara corrects, and he's still watching Fu, a little warily, but he also doesn't move away when she slips past him. "I don't think there will be." "There isn't anything like that here," Fu agrees, and isn't the least bit shy about grabbing Kurama's free hand and latching on. She gives him a pointed tug. "Come on, this way. The mouth opens over here. I can't close it because I don't know any Daton jutsus yet, but we might be able to hide it." Kurama snorts. "I can hide it," he volunteers. "Sealing it should keep them off our trail completely. You're a smart one, kid." Fu beams at him, twisting her fingers through his and gripping tightly. "No one's ever said that about me before," she confesses. "Kurama like that!" Naruto agrees sagely. "He's always super nice, and he gives hugs, and he tells stories, and he let me have 8 bowls of ramen when we stop for noodles, and..." "And he carries us, sometimes," Gaara puts in quietly, ducking his head a little. "It's nice." "Shut up!" Kurama huffs, feeling heat rising in his cheeks. "You're all brats, and I'd eat you if you add a little more meat on your bones. I'm just being nice so I can fatten you up. Got it?" Fu giggles and skips a step, swinging their hands. On his other side, Naruto presses close, all but tripping him up, and Gaara's small hand finds the hem of his Iori again, tugging lightly. Kurama looks down at the 3 little larval stage humans he seems to have adopted, thinks of the sheer magnitude of mocking this would earn him from his Naruto, and quietly despairs. But maybe, just maybe, he's smiling again.